Hello everyone, today I have for you a brand new redstone weapon. Now this one isn't actually particularly new to me because it's one that I've been trying to do for a very long time and I've been extremely unsuccessful with every time I tried it. But this time I think things are going to be a little bit different, so let's take a little look. So as you've probably seen, I have some very powerful and very deadly redstone defenses on my channel. Weapons like this one that are so powerful, they will kill any player, even in the strongest armor in the game, protection for Netherite. Or like this one that'll automatically track down the location of the player and begin shooting arrows at them no matter where they're standing. Or this one that automatically detects any flying machines that are traveling overhead and immediately destroys them. But of course, as powerful as these weapons are, there's one overwhelmingly simple way to defeat all of them, and that is the Elytra. A player using an Elytra is extremely difficult to kill automatically just because of the sheer agility and sheer speed with which it allows the player to move. A quick-witted player with an Elytra is nearly impossible to kill automatically just because of the sheer speed at which they can escape any situation. Now, as hard as this may sound, I'm actually adding another layer of difficulty to this. Not only do I want this machine to automatically kill a player with an Elytra, but I want to kill a player with an Elytra with full protection for Netherite. So the first thing I took a look at is how I was going to automatically detect a player flying by with an Elytra. So a very simple solution that many people use is just setting up a wall of tripwire hooks like this that will automatically detect a player flying through them. However, this is not going to be the solution that I use in my machine, just because if you're flying by with an Elytra, these tripwire hooks are pretty easy to notice. It's pretty apparent that you don't want to be flying through them because something bad is going to happen. So while searching for possible solutions, I came across something really interesting. Apparently skulk sensors can actually detect when a player flies by with an Elytra. So that covered the actual activation method, but the defense method turned out to be a lot more difficult. So I'd need something that would fire very quickly into the air and deal a lot of damage in a short amount of time, and yeah, this doesn't quite cover it. So there are a few other things you can put in dispensers besides arrows that do a little bit more damage, and my first option was to use fire charges, and these do look quite intimidating, but in reality, if you're flying around with an Elytra, and you have full protection for Netherite, they really don't do a whole lot of damage. So there is another alternative that I thought of that was using fireworks as sort of an ammunition as an anti-aircraft system, and I tried this out, and it does sort of work, but again, it just doesn't do quite the damage I'm looking for, and also only works in a very limited area. So my next approach idea was just to use a gigantic flurry storm of arrows that would be launched by the TNT minecarts into the stratosphere. Unfortunately, while this does look very cool and very deadly, it was extremely inaccurate and only hit around 10% of the time. So since none of my other options were working particularly well, I decided to just go with good old TNT minecarts. So combining these two ideas together, I made my first iteration of the Anti-Elytra Aerial Mine. So while this design does work, there's the small issue that the skulk sensor can only pick up the sounds of players inside of this sphere right here, which seems quite large until you remember that the player's flying through with an Elytra. It's pretty easy for them to avoid this, they'd have to come really close to it in order for it to go off. If you were to hide the mine underground, the player would have to fly into an area around this big, which is extremely low to the ground if you're using an Elytra. So this caused me to give up for quite some time, as I had no idea how to make a long-range proximity detector that worked as fast as a skulk sensor. But the fact that you're here watching this video now means that I found an answer, and my answer is cows. So now some of you will be wondering, Maorum, how could a cow possibly be used as a better proximity detector than a skulk sensor? Well, let me show you. Cow detectors are actually nothing particularly new, and they make use of a very obscure feature. So right here we have a cow who's standing on a pressure plate, powering those lamps, and eventually, if we were too close, the cow would eventually step off the pressure plate and it would turn off the lamps. But if you get far enough away from the cow, then it'll become stationary, because cows don't move if the player is too far away from them. If the player is standing too close, the cow will eventually walk off of the pressure plate and it will deactivate. Unfortunately, there is one other problem with this method, and that is that cows are lazy and like to stand around and not move that much. This makes this effectively useless against the player with an Elytra, because there is no easy way to predict when the cow will walk off of the pressure plate, and since the Elytra player will be in and out of the area within less than a second, it doesn't really matter because the cow will take too long. Luckily, there is a solution, which is to use many cows. Because there are so many in here, they push against each other, so whenever the block gets moved out of the way, they immediately go blasting out. So right here, I have a whole bunch of cows loaded into this chamber right here, and the moment they realize they can escape, these lamps will turn on, So right when we walk over this line, the cows will start escaping. Let's do it right now. Look how fast that was. Alright, and here we have the final design. So here are all the cows in the little detection chamber. The moment they come out, they're going to step on that pressure plate, which is going to activate this piston as quickly as possible, destroying the elytra player. Alright, so let's give this thing a little test. As you can see, I have my full protection for netherite as well as my elytra. So I'm going to go ahead and take my rockets. I would jump off of this and start heading towards the trap. Now as you can see, I covered it up in grass blocks, so we can fly a pretty good height over it, and it's still going to activate the moment we get to around here. And we are dead. Well, we have finally done it. After multiple months of toil and trial, we have finally managed to create the Automatic Anti-Elytra Cannon. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this redstone weapon video or found it useful. If you want to see more stuff like this, then make sure you're subscribed, and for now, goodbye.